Um, First of all, I would love to say big thanks to everyone who is joining us live. I know it's hectic. Uh, Amy is saying hi, Gavin. So you already
Yes,
have your
indeed.
friends here. And so thanks everyone for being here, for joining us live. It always is more fun to see your faces and yeah, to see you live than only knowing that you are watching the recording. First of all, Gavin, I will say a few words about you. I will say big welcome and thank you for accepting to be one of our speakers here. You are actually the first live speaker at the Childhood Potential Conference this year, so I'm really excited. It's you.
I'm honored.
And first of all, I also want to say that I really appreciate your work. I love what you do all around the world. I love what you do in Nepal. I love all of your projects. And I will make sure that everyone has the link to each one of your projects in both of the chats and also then with the recording of this session. And I will say a few words at the beginning about you, and then I will give you space so you can start your presentation.
Sure, thank
You
you so much.
are you are a Montessori trained educator. You are a co-founder of Upschool. You have more than 20 years working across classrooms and communities worldwide. You are really passionate about learning that nurtures curiosity, social responsibility, and genuine student voice. You have supported the establishment of schools, libraries, teacher training programs in Nepal, and you continue your work with educators internationally. Everywhere, I love seeing all of your activities all around the world. Some of the projects you have are, for example, write a book to change the world, or the wonderful world of trees. And you are also the author of Raising Resilient Children and Screen Smart Children. What did I forget? What do you want to add? Tell us more.
No, that's good. That's perfect. Thank you so much for saying all those things. I appreciate it.
Perfect. Well, then, floor is yours, and you can start your presentation. And if anyone has questions, please share them in the chat. And in the chat, you can also write, where are you from, or if you are a parent or an educator, how old are your children, so we know who is here. And then I can be choosing the questions also according to who the audience is at today's talk.
Okay, thank you so much, Lucy, and for having me. Just before I begin, Lucy, I'll never forget while I was in training to become a Montessori teacher, you contacted me and asked me, "Would you like to talk at our conference?" And I thought, "Oh God, I'm not equipped for this. I've just started my training, but you gave me a chance, and it was nerve-wracking. I remember I just started my kind of career in Montessori education. And here we are, I think 10 years later or something crazy like that.
This
So
is our
fair play to
ninth
you.
conference.
Yeah, fair play to you for keeping it going. It's not easy work, this. And secondly, thanks for everyone for attending live. It's interesting to see. Usually I just see you on LinkedIn as a kind of graphic, but now you're moving, so I know you're actually real. Like Amy can't see her as a picture, but now I can see she's giggling, and so she's obviously a real human being, which is great. Okay, I won't dilly-dally or waste any more time. I'll just get started straight away. Okay, where are we? We are here. Yes. Okay. Let me know if you can see. All good? You can see this? Yes,
Yes.
good. All right, good. We'll just move a few of these tiles out of the way, and then we'll get started. Okay. Before we begin, I have been blessed in the last couple of years to be doing some research with a very intelligent man, much more intelligent than I could ever wish to be, Professor Mark Williams from MIT in the USA, who's a neuroscientist, one of the best in the world. Not that we care about who's best and worst, but one of the most experienced, basically. And I was blessed to sit with him for almost 2 years and just pick his brain about education and what works and what doesn't work, and why things don't work, and what are we missing. And I uncovered just a treasure trove of information. I know we've got a lot of Montessori educators here, which is wonderful. And if you are a Montessori educator, then you're already a long way down the track, because Maria Montessori was a scientist, and so she was already there, in many ways. But if you're a non-Montessori educator too, then there's also a lot to learn, not just from Montessori, but just in general from biochemistry and the physiology of human beings and how we actually work. I don't want to be negative, but I'll start on a negative, and that is that I think in all my work in schools around the world, we're just not getting it. We're just not hitting the mark when it comes to what works when it comes to teaching children, and what works in terms of providing an environment that's conducive to learning. So, in a nutshell, it really comes down to trust. It's all about trust. And if you look at, society, we're also looking at that too. All right. So it's a really cool day today. I released this book about 7 months ago, Raising Resilient Children. But actually today is the day that Screen Smart Children comes out today. And I wrote it in conjunction with Professor Mark Williams. Basically, that book is about how to live with technology and your children in the same environment. So a lot of the stuff I'm about to talk about today, it has come from either one of these books, because when you're writing a book, it takes a year and there's a lot of research goes into that, and you uncover so much gold that I want to bring it all to you today, and hopefully you will enjoy it. This is not Maria Montessori, this is me. My personal perspective on education, when I've done so much work in India and China and all around the world, is very simple. It's that our students need to be good people in 20 years' time. And the true success of any educational facility or institution or pedagogy is the person you see walking down the street in 20 years' time. Who are they? So you're not going to see it now. You're not going to see it in the work cycle. You're not going to see it next week or as they graduate. You'll see some things, but it's about the person that evolves from that journey. And I have I've got two cats, so this picture really sums it up for me. If you cover up a cat in the rain, then I think you're a great person. So that's wonderful. Okay, so as Lucy said, I'm a co-founder of Upschool, which is basically brings Montessori big work to schools all around the planet. We've got about 80,000 schools around the planet come to Upschool every single day. The 5 biggest in the entire world come to Upschool for their learning, and we've traveled to the ends of the earth to record really inspirational lessons for children, so that they can take on big work projects. And this year we planted something like 100,000 trees globally. Children have written hundreds of thousands of books, so it's really fulfilling and fun work. One of our greatest achievements this year was to do the biggest research study in the world, and I'll be talking more about this with Amy over in Canada next, in I think October next year. The biggest research study on Earth on hope in children using the hope scale. We had 52,000 children from one school conduct some work, and we wanted to measure how did it affect their level of hope in the world. Hope is really low, as you can imagine, especially if you watch the news these days. You see hope is very low. One of our big achievements was that. Okay, enough about me and what we've done. Let's get into it. So with power comes responsibility, and we are the ones with that power. Educators have a lot of power. School administrators have a lot of power. School jurisdictions, in terms of councils, have a lot of power. So it's important that we use it very wisely. Now, I've done a lot of work around the world with children, but I can't think of a better photograph personally that tells you that power. And this is a photograph that, my friend took this photograph. These children are from a real rural area in Nepal called Jumla. They've never seen a book before in their entire life. This is their first ever book, and they wanted a story. And I'd taken 10,000 books there, so I went to pick what I thought this better be a good story because it's your first one. And so, when you think about how much power we've got as human beings, as teachers, you just look at that photograph, and every word you say is like a drop of gold. They are hanging on it. So it's really important that we use that power, that responsibility really wisely indeed. One of our projects this year was to give children a chance to write and illustrate their own children's book and publish it. And I wanted to tell you very quickly about, what this means, what this journey means to us as educators. This little boy is called Osman, and I've got permission to use his name, so don't worry about that. He was in Afghanistan during the recent wars, and he lost his mum and dad. And he arrived in Australia as a refugee. He took on our course called Write a Book to Change the World, as Lucy mentioned, where they get to write and illustrate their very own children's picture book. He wrote a book called The Day the Banana Spoke. Now, when he arrived in Australia, he was mute. There was no speaking because he'd seen such horrific situations in front of him that he decided he wasn't going to speak anymore. Now, in the process of writing this book called The Day the Banana Spoke, I just want to let you know that he's the banana. In the middle of the book, he just miraculously started speaking out of nowhere after 1.5 years of not speaking. And the ability for him to tell and write and articulate his story, disguise himself as a banana, to give himself that safety barrier to say, look, I'm going to put my story out there, but I don't want anyone to know it's really me. So I'm actually going to make myself into a banana. He started speaking. It's called narrative writing therapy. You know, we all write a diary, we write blogs, we write posts. And this therapy for children is huge, allowing them to have their own story out there in the world as a real person. And it really, broke my heart in a kind of happy and sad way, because if you look on the picture in the top right corner, you'll see there's a picture of him sitting on a sofa looking sad. And in the background, you'll see a picture frame on the wall. And that picture frame has two people in it. Now, in the course that he took, we learned about inferential clues and leaving them in the illustrations. And he put his mum and dad on every single page as a little mum and dad banana, and he dedicated the book to them. And I've met him, and this is our why. We do it because we want to see children get over whatever they're going through, become this person that we always knew they could be, but be able to walk on the streets and do everything they want to do in the future. And that's really the greatest success we've got. Now, when it comes to education or the journey of life, time is the only thing we truly have. And in this research in Screen Smart Children, we started to look at how we're spending our time. Check this out. So if you live till 85, that's 1,000 years. That's 1,000 months. 1,000 months is very short. It's a very small number. I'm going to spend one of my 1,000 months with Amy over in October in Canada. So to give a month away that's a lot, So that just shows you how much I'm dedicated to Montessori Canada. But I'm just joking. What I'm trying to say is that we haven't got any time to waste. There's no time to waste. 1,000 months to be alive, and that is if you reach 85 years of age. Here is how our children are going to spend their 1,000 months. A child under 7 today will spend their 1,000 months like this, unless something shifts. So sleeping, 336 months, which is about 33% of your life. In the bathroom, 20 months. I have no idea what they're doing in the bathroom for 20 months, but they're busy in there, as you know. 42 months in transportation or in a car, and about 126 months cooking or eating. Now, the top half of this chart, they're all fundamentals. You cannot change them. They're just, you need to do those things. There's no way of getting out of it. It's the bottom half, which we have full jurisdiction over as parents, as educators, and as people who run educational facilities. The first one is working, 113 months working. It doesn't seem like a long time, actually, but many of us kind of push our children down a route they don't want to go because we think it's good for them. Your grandfather was a doctor, I'm a doctor, and so you're going to be a doctor. I want to be a vet. No, I'm sorry, you're not going to be a vet. You're going to be a doctor. But I really like animals. I'm not interested in what you like. I'm interested in what looks good for me and what looks like success. So, choose a school where they get to discover their future profession in school. Number 2, going to school, 21 months. School has to be a safe place. We'll talk about that later. But the third one, which I think is absolutely shocking, is the same amount of time as you are asleep, you're going to be looking at a screen. So an iPad, an iPhone, Netflix, or a laptop. And if we do nothing, if we don't shift and move the needle, that leaves them 5% of their life left to do everything that we dreamed of. Travel the world, fall in love, follow your passion, discover who you really are. And so our objective, and the reason I put this together, is at the bottom half, you can see that's what we need to change. Our children need to discover their profession in the classroom when they're 5 years old. Our children need to go to schools that are safe. Our children need to basically have technology in their life, but rationed in a way that's suitable, not something which is a future-focused, attention seeker. And then we give them 50% of their life back, And if they just spend less time in the toilet, maybe they can have a little bit more back as well. But we'll leave that to them. In my research for my book, I started to delve into educational success. What does it mean? And what are people looking for? And, parents vote with their feet. This is how it works. Obviously, If they believe in your pedagogy, they believe in your school, they will enroll in your school. And there's three things that parents want. I conducted a very large survey on this. The first one is they want their children to be safe. So I give you my child as a school, give my child back to me alive at the end of the day, please. Thank you. And that's almost a guarantee. Number two is I want my child to be smart. So safe and smart, make them intelligent and keep them alive. Okay, we'll try our best at those two. We'll try our best. Number three is the hard one though, and that is happy. I want my child to be happy. Now, you can't be happy all the time, and happiness without sadness is meaningless anyway, like black and white and yin and yang. But getting a child to feel happy is tricky. So I delved into a huge amount of research around this, and I looked into what brings happiness. And Lucy, this will be interesting for you because you're from almost some of these regions. You're not far away, just an hour's flight. So this is from the OECD, and there's two reports here. The OECD, obviously, is a global reporting organization. On the left-hand side is your PISA rankings, your top 4 smartest countries on Earth. Singapore, Macau, Hong Kong, Japan. Number 5 was Taiwan. Now, Macau's not a country, but never mind, they list it anyway. So you've got 5 of the smartest countries on Earth. And just to bear in mind, Singapore being the smartest for 5 years in a row, unstoppable. Now, you would think, or the average person would think, that if they are smart, then they get good jobs, they get good money, they've got a big house, they've got a Hermes handbag, a Ferrari, and they live on the water. So they should be, fingers crossed, happy. However, go and look at the happiness rankings, same year, same organization. You will not find any of those countries in the top 10, top 20, or even top 30. Finland, Denmark, Iceland, Sweden, and Switzerland are your top 5. Why? Very interesting. They all have one thing in common, all of these countries. Crazy and insane levels of trust in the community. In fact, Iceland, no prison, no jail, almost zero crime. People live there, doors open, almost everybody. And there's a tradition that the air is clean outside, so I'll leave my child sleeping in the garden overnight without fear or worry that anything will happen to them. And I went to Iceland to investigate this because I couldn't believe it was actually true. And it was true, to the point where I went to hire a car to drive around and do this research. And the guy just handed me the keys with no paperwork, no nothing. And I said, well, is there an office I need to come to? He said, no, don't worry about it. I said, well, where do I drop the car off? He said, just leave it in the car park when you're finished. And what about the keys? Just leave them in the ignition. What about the door? Just leave it open. And I thought, wow, it really is true. Now, in contrast to that, Singapore, the children of Singapore are struggling. The teenagers are literally jumping off of buildings, committing suicide because of stress and academic pressure. So this correlation between am I intelligent and therefore am I happy just doesn't work. What we actually need to focus on, and we'll talk about it in this discussion, is trust. It sits in trust, and it's very important that we think about that. Okay, and if you don't believe me, I've got some proof for everything. So you don't have to take me, So you got Roger Federer, greatest tennis player that's ever lived in all time. I think he's about to be overtaken by Sinner or one of these guys at the moment. But in his career, he played 1,526 matches in his entire career. He won 80% of those matches, so he lost 20%. In fact, we could say he was a loser 20% of the time. However, still the best ever in history. And when you look at the points internally inside the games, he only won 54%. He was a loser 46% of the time. However, he's the world's best player. And there's one thing that he has that most players do not have, and that's an insane level of trust in himself. So he could lose, and I've listened to many interviews with him about this, he could lose 15 points in a row, and it wouldn't bother him. He doesn't think about the game, the points, doesn't think about any of the past. his objective is, I just need to win the next point, and then I'm on my winning streak again. And this sits under the skill level of resilience. We've got this resilience. I can do this. I don't need to worry about that. And our children really need that. They need that in their lives. So I've kind of, I whittled this down last night from 20 because I did a big workshop in China with 20, and I thought, let me get it down to 5 because I've only got 35 minutes or something with Lucy. And if I go too long, just cut me off. Don't worry about it. So first one is understand how the brain likes to learn. For me, this is the gold. So this is what I want you to know first. So firstly, 70% of everything you'll ever learn in your entire life is in before 7. People often contest that, and I'm not going to argue with Mark Williams, so I'm just going to take that as verbatim. And the reality is, it sounds unbelievable. Surely that can't be true, Gavin. What about the documentaries I've watched? What about the books? What about the travel? What about the conversations? What about the films? And it's not about that. It's actually learning those hidden life lessons, such as reading body language, learning to understand emotions. What does a facial expression need? What about timing, speech, all these things? So 70% of everything is in before 7. By the age of 5, 90% of your brain has already been established, already grown to a capacity. So, you really have got this tiny, the reason I'm stressing that is you've got this tiny window, 0 to 7. And that's why it's called the sensitive periods, obviously Montessori is like, you better make sure that you're not waiting around for school. Oh, don't worry about that. He'll learn everything at school. No, 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 no. You've already missed the boat. We've got 0 to 7 to get in all of that learning and while the brain is growing. And I think this is the most important thing for me, and this is the most important thing for all of us here, is when children observe respectful, emotionally intelligent adults, us, it leads to the 3 things. Elevated self-esteem. So your Roger Federer comes from that. I can do this. Better school performance in all jurisdictions, academically, emotionally, socially, physically, and greater resilience. So it sits with us. Just look at that. Respectful, emotional, intelligent adults. We are respectful of them and ourselves, and we are aware of our emotions, and we don't mind talking about them. Basically, that's it in a nutshell. And it's very simple. I respect you, you respect me, and let's talk about our feelings. Bingo, we're off. Really, really simple, but I think really, really interesting. Okay, so what we are, what you are, what I am, is what they will become. There's no other side to this coin. We can't be something and expect them to be something else. It doesn't work that way. And we'll talk about that in a second. Now, in lots of schools around the world, the teacher is the oracle at the front of the class and talks for around about 7 hours a day, and that is their job description. That is their expectation when the principal walks down the corridor. However, Albert Meridian would tell you you're missing the boat. One of the greatest communication specialists of all time. Only 7% of all communication is verbal. So the words we say. 55% is our body language. Are we down low? Are we open? Is our face soft? Are our eyes gentle? And our tone of voice, 38%. So if we really want to be a teacher, a guide, a mentor, someone, we need to be really mindful of those things. How am I presenting myself to the class? How do I look in the mirror if I'm thinking about how I am perceived from a child's perspective? Regardless of what I've come in the door with, what trauma, all those things, I need to make sure that I am what we call, of course, the prepared adult. This prepared environment, get my classroom ready, get myself ready. Am I ready? And can I see myself from a drone position? How am I looking? How am I feeling? So in Montessori education, of course, we stand at the door and we shake a child's hand at the door every single day. I did that for 10 years without realizing why. I just thought it was a tradition that we did. Hey, Montessori did this one day. But then I realized the genius behind it when I sat with Mark Williams in a cafe one day and we talked. Now, we stand at the door and we shake hands. Let me tell you what happens. Children are on their way to school, and we'll talk about this a bit later, but there's about 1 trillion things that sit in a child's mind that would cause them to be scared of coming to school. Things you may never even think of. Things like, will my teacher be absent today? Will my teacher be absent today? Now, that is up in the air. Who knows what happened to you last night? The children has no idea. So they're walking to school, and somewhere sitting in their psyche is, I hope my teacher's not away, because if she's away, I'm going to have somebody else. And who is that somebody else? I do not know. And therefore, I am scared. And if I am scared, my amygdala just clicks in my brain and says, ooh, you better run away, fight or flight. And so there's about 1 trillion of these things that could happen, and the child is walking to school. And therefore, our job is to mitigate that. We'll talk about that a bit later on. But one of the ways that we can do this, and Montessori had this a long time ago, pure genius, really, is shake their hand at the door. They arrive, shake their hand at the door. Even if you are the substitute teacher, still shake their hand. Because as soon as your hand touches their hand, immediately something miraculous happens inside our biochemistry. And that is, my hand is covered in skin, and my hand knows when it's touching skin. It goes, Gavin, that's skin you're touching, but it's your skin. I know it's your skin. Now, if I shake Lucy's hand, my body says, "Ooh, I know you're touching skin. That's not your skin. Somebody else's skin." Now, if you're touching their skin for more than 2 seconds, that means that you actually like being near them, you trust them, and you respect them, and they're not any danger to you. Therefore, I'm going to reward you because we are what's called the connected species. We get rewarded for being connected. And our brain rewards us in 3 ways. The first one, it floods our bloodstream with oxytocin, which is what's called the cuddle hormone. It makes you feel safe. Beautiful. Number 2, it lowers your heart rate. And number 3, it lowers your blood pressure almost immediately. So you now feel safer. And then you pop in the classroom and Bob's your uncle. You're ready to learn. So this tiny bit of connection that we get, and we're not saying hug the children sitting on your knee, none of this. This is all against child protection policy, of course. Shaking their hand, there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, everything is right with it, obviously with the child's permission. But it's pure genius. So this is the first part. Now let's get into the brain. I think it's really interesting, this part. So your brain's capacity is about 2.5 petabytes of storage. So imagine the ultimate USB stick. It's the ultimate flash drive. 2.5 petabytes is about 300 years of continuous 4K footage being stored. Now, just to be clear, it's impossible to fill it. Impossible. There is literally no way that it could be filled with information in a lifetime. However, what the brain doesn't know is exactly that. And its biggest fear is that it will be filled. That's its biggest fear. Oh my goodness, I better not do any more of this studying because I might reach capacity. If I do reach capacity, there's no room to learn new things. If I can't learn new things, there's a chance I'm going to die. And your brain has only one job, just so you're aware, and that is to keep you alive as long as possible. Everything leads to that. That's what learning is. That's what sleeping is. It's all that. So what does it do about that? Imagine that. It's worried there's going to be no space, but it still wants to learn. So every night it does something called synaptic pruning. This is one of the greatest things I've ever learned in my life. And it happens to you, happens to me, happens to everyone. But it happens to children under 13 a lot more. You go to bed and your brain quickly goes through everything you've learned that day. So the average human has between 50 and 70,000 opportunities for learning per day. So it has to go through all 70,000. And it does it in reverse order, by the way, from the last thing you learned to the first thing you learned, and decides, what am I keeping and what am I dissolving? And it's called synaptic pruning, basically like a pair of scissors chopping synapses and cutting them. And if the brain deems this information is not important, it chops the synapse. The synapse then goes into the lymphatic system, it's dissolved, and when you go to the toilet in the morning, first thing in the morning, the first thing that comes out are all of those synapses, right? And it's a bit gross, I know, but it's important because if you are a teacher, your biggest fear should be that you do not want your lesson to end up in the toilet tomorrow morning. That's what you don't want that. You do not want it because you've been teaching this amazing lesson on invertebrates, okay? And then the child goes to bed that night and the brain goes, you know what? That lesson, that information is deemed irrelevant, chop it, dissolve it, and in the morning, let's flush it into the sewers. Now, what a waste of all of your time. You've made the flashcards, you've laminated them, you've done all of your research, and it's gone down the toilet. And this happens every single night because the brain wants to be efficient, wants to be really efficient. I only keep the things that are important because I don't want to keep everything, of course. Why would it keep everything? Some things it can learn again and again and again. So instead of moving him into the cortex for long-term memory or the hippocampus, it basically gets rid of them. Now, what's really important is there are actually 4 ways that you can guarantee that when the brain comes across the information, it definitely 100% moves them into long-term memory. I've done this talk 4 or 5 times, and every single teacher pricks up at this point and says, oh my God, I need to know this bit. And it's actually really important. You do need to know this bit. 4 things. So the first one is if your lesson involves an emotion on your part as the educator or an emotion on their part. Feelings are really important. The brain keeps feelings because feelings will keep us alive. I felt this. I felt this. She was scary. He was kind. I better keep that information. Feelings. Number 2, did you touch something you've never touched before? Hands-on experience. If I've touched something I've never touched before, I will 100% keep it. So if you let the children touch a snail in your class for the first time ever, brain will say, move it into long-term memory. I know snails are actually safe to hold. I need to keep that information. And it will just keep the whole lesson alongside it. Number 3, risk. Could it have gone wrong? I don't mean falling off of a cliff risk. I mean risk of making a mistake. And number 4, was there any choice? Did I get a chance to choose? Choose where I sit, choose who I work with, choose what medium I use to represent my research. Any choice is totally fine. And if you just think about that for a second, in mainstream education in many schools around the world, all 4 of those are gone. No choice, no risk, nothing to touch, certainly no feelings, apart from sometimes, if the teacher is just regurgitating information using a textbook and worksheet, maybe the emotion of boredom, okay? And that's just a hard fact. So we need to take heed of those things. Very important indeed. And if you think about it like this, if I were just to show you this and say to children, we're learning about invertebrates, and today we're talking about snails. Did you know a snail has more teeth than any creature on the entire planet? It has 17,000, more teeth than any creature that's ever lived in history. Here's a snail's mouth internally. Now, you're not going to forget that. If I then allow you to hold a snail in your hand for the first time, my whole lesson is now in the cortex and never, ever going to be erased. And so it's really simple to use this wow factor to inspire children to feel something. Really important indeed. Usually in my training with teachers, I say, don't go for the mundane. Go grab the superlative. If you're teaching anything, you get the maximum. Go and get the craziest thing you can think of and start with that. And not going to forget. Now, neither are you. No, we're all grown adults now. You're not going to forget that snails have more teeth than any creature ever in history. I almost guarantee that. Number 2, the second most important thing I've learned was let them know they matter. This is called the theory of mattering. This is just fantastic in my opinion. So we're at the door, children arrive and we shake their hand. Good morning, how are you? Yes, I'm great, thank you so much. Shake their hand, oxytocin, feeling safe. That's gold standard. To make it, platinum, we do this. We say to the children, we ask them something about their actual life that we know. Because we've spent time talking to them, we know what they're up to, we know their hobbies, we know who they are. And we say, hey, by the way, Tommy, how's your guinea pig? I heard you've got a new guinea pig. Now, it may seem like a very simple and, a who cares question. But what happens in the child's brain is exactly this. The child says, hang on a minute. That human at the door, who could have been doing so many other things with his time, he could have been doing anything in the world, he knows that I've just got a new guinea pig. He's been thinking about me. And he's now asking me about my guinea pig, which tells me something. It tells me that I matter to him. If I matter to him, he cares about me. If he cares about me, I should trust him. If I trust him, then I better listen to him, I better learn from him, and I better mimic him. Those 3 things. This is called the theory of mattering, letting somebody know they matter. Not asking the question for question's sake, but being genuinely interested in the child's life. And I made this little comic for you where the child says, hello, how's your guinea pig? Yes, I'm great. And later I'm going to go to bed because they've been let know they matter. Everything moves into hippocampus. Now, here's a warning for you. If you fail, so in the table at the bottom, When you let children know they matter, three things happen. Number one, you look beautiful. They just want to look at you. You just look more beautiful. So everyone wants to look beautiful. So this is great. So do it. Number two, you sound beautiful, like an angel just singing, sitting on a cloud. They just want to listen to you. And number three, they pull you in to their inner circle. You're almost family. That's how far you've gone. And for a teacher, you want that. You want them, all three of them, you want them to look at you want them to listen to you, and you want them to trust you. Now, fail to let them know they matter at your peril. Okay. This is where we miss it in many schools because three things will happen. Number one, you look ugly. They find you repulsive to look at. Number two, they don't want to listen to you either. Your voice is like grates on their mind. They just switch their ears off. And number three, they push you out of their inner circle. You're no longer family. And they will do the polar opposite of trust you, mimic you, and learn from you. So if you fail to let them know they matter, then teaching them is completely irrelevant. And I'll prove it to you. In a study at Cambridge University, a teacher stood at the door for 30 days in a row. And 15 children were chosen. She shook their hand every day and let them know they matter. How's your guinea pig? How's your grandma? Did you score any goals at the weekend at football? 15 other children, she completely ignored them and said, let's go in, get your books out. We haven't got time to chat. After 30 days of continuously doing this with the same children, they put brain analytical equipment on the children's brains, and she taught them a lesson on snails. What was amazing was the 15 children who had been approached and had their hands shaken and let them know they matter, their brain, every single area of the brain was on like a fireworks display. It was just on. Everything was on. The 15 children who had been ignored and deemed irrelevant, their brain was off. It was a pinprick of light. In fact, in the research, it said they may as well be at home. There's no point in being there. Because the brain had said, I do not matter to you, therefore I don't trust you, therefore I must not learn from you, because you could be leading me down a path which is detrimental to my survival. And so let them know they matter or not at your own peril. And it's just so easy. And it's so easy to do. You know, if you really want to, if you're a kind of school that's like, we really want high grades in our school, it's so easy. Let them know they matter, let them trust you, and Bob's your uncle, you're off. Step number three, a good teacher knows when to teach, but a great teacher knows when to zip it up and close your lips and get out of the way. And I think this is just fantastic. I've pulled out all the best stuff for you, Lucy. I hope you don't mind. This is called the precocity paradox. And this is why we should never push our children. You know, I talk to educators all around the world. Many times we push our children way too soon. We push them down a route that we think is conducive to what we want to see in the future, but it's actually paradoxical. It does the exact polar opposite. I'm going to give you two scenarios, and you know these children 100%, and you know these families, and you know these parents. This is Tommy. Tommy is smart. He studies a lot. He goes to school all day. After school, he goes to tutoring every single night. His mum and dad send him to different tutoring schools. So there's violin on a Monday, there's maths on a Tuesday, there's literacy on a Wednesday, there's blah, blah, blah. You know this child. And he's amazing, this kid. He can do his whole times tables from 0 to 12, and he can do them at any point, backwards, forwards, upside down, standing on his head, no problem whatsoever. And he can do lots of amazing mathematical calculations very quickly indeed. And what happens is, little Tommy, when there's a family party or a dinner or something, or you know, a show at school or show and tell, he's wheeled out on a trolley and he performs like some, you know, a bear in a circus. And people clap and say, "Whoa, my God, Tommy's a genius. This is fantastic." And families, the mums and dads are just like blown away by how amazing he is. But in his brain, what's actually happening is he's got these 5 go-tos that he can do. He can perform, and he can do his times tables. He can do multiplication of 2-digit numbers quickly, like this, very quick. You know, I won't go through it. You know what I'm talking. He can add fractions with different denominators, no problem. But in his brain, he develops these 5 really thick neural pathways that he always relies on for success. And they are strong. And they are really, really deep learning, and he always relies on them continuously, and they're deemed successful whenever he needs them. People say that he's going to be the next Elon Musk or some kind of genius, Thomas Edison or something. Now, On the opposite side, you've got Stephanie. Stephanie, on the other hand, cannot do those things that Tommy can do. In fact, put under pressure, she just completely fails and closes her eyes and puts her hands over her face. And she can't do those things. In fact, when she goes to parties, family parties, people say she should maybe get some extra tutoring or maybe go to a special school for special kids who need special treatment. And they know a person. I can recommend a child psychologist. Clearly she's got something going on. She can't do this. But I tell you what she does do. You put her in a garden and she absolutely is in the flow state. She'll sit there studying leaves, insects. She collects leaves actually, and she puts them in a little notebook and she presses them and she labels each leaf. And she, with a magnifying glass, looks at the stomates on the back and she examines tree bark, and she's just in flow in a garden all day long. She just loves horticulture. But she can't perform when it comes to this kind of high pressure situation. Now, here's the paradox, and this is really amazing. And it's called the precocity paradox, because precocity is being precocious, so doing something when you're ready to do it. Now, here's how it looks scientifically. This comes out of Wozniak, out of Poland, 2025, last year. Wozniak, if you don't know who he is, an amazing education psychologist researcher. 2025, this is last year, 6 months ago, brand new. Have a look at these two. So look, in the yellow line is Tommy. So between 0 to 7 years of age, he's the orange line is Tommy. 0 to 7, he's growing exponentially. He's looking like he's going to absolutely kill it in life. He's going to succeed in all fronts. But what happens is, around about 7 years of age, life gets tricky. There's no emotions involved. Now you have to learn deeper things. Things have to be connected. You need to have neuroplasticity in order to survive. But Tommy doesn't have it. He only has 5 very strong neural pathways that he relies on, and then he starts to falter. We have a problem on our hands. The neural pathways are not connected. They're very linear and they're on their own. And so he ends up becoming, and there's nothing wrong with this, but an average to below average child when it comes to success in all fronts, emotionally, socially, academically. This is the issue. Now you've got Stephanie on the other hand. She's the yellow line. She's allowed to just go. She's allowed to explore. She's got her thing, which is hers. Now, when it comes to 7 to 8 years of age and life gets more tricky, her neuroplasticity is so wide. She has hundreds of trillions of neurons to rely on. And you know what they all can do? They can all connect. They can all connect to build this web of knowledge where mathematics sits and literacy has a home. And she actually has a stronger chance of actually becoming that genius who becomes a specialist in the field that she chooses. And when you look at many of our, let's label them as geniuses in the world, what we find is we go back into their lives. When they were young, they were not forced down a tunnel. They were allowed to be free, and they were allowed to have choice and freedom and agency over their journey. And I think I do this talk to parents many times. Very enlightening to realize, oh my goodness, maybe I should let him stop in the street and collect those leaves on the way to school because he's intrinsically interested in them. I won't focus on this for now. I'll skip this. I'm running out of time. It's very obvious to you guys. Number 4, make them feel safe. This is the part I wanted to get to. Modeling calm. This is a very recent research I did for some work in China. I'll tell you a very quick story. I find this totally amazing. Maybe you saw it on LinkedIn, I'm not sure. I have a school in Sydney who were taking an upschool course, and I went to visit them. I went to just meet them. I wanted to see some children. I've been working in my office for so long. So they invited me and I went to meet them, and I wanted to congratulate them on their work, and they were doing a course on values, and it was beautiful. Now, as a Montessori educator, I learned in my training that equality and equity in classrooms is very important. If I'm going to shake one child's hand, I better make sure I shake every child's hand. If I'm going to talk to one child, I make sure I talk to all of them, because I don't want someone going home thinking, hang on a minute, he didn't talk to me. That wasn't fair. So somewhere inbuilt inside of me is this sense of equity and equality in students. Now, when I was sitting in front of these 28 children, I was looking at them. And I didn't realize this till later, but I looked at all of them, every single one of them, in their eyes, because it's just something I've learned to do. It's equity, it's equality. Now, when I arrived home, the teacher wrote me a message and said, Gavin, thank you for coming. It was brilliant to have you here. The children have written a recount of you coming to school. I said, oh, great. She goes, can I send you a few? I said, sure. So she sent me them all. And this one was the one that absolutely cemented it in my mind about how important it is. Look what this child wrote. I've underlined it in red. He said, I liked his, the blah, 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 blah. I liked his clothes, which is a nice compliment. Thank you. And then he said, and he looked at everyone. Now, he was 7. He was 7. Now, I wasn't looking at them like this, like I wasn't doing that. Okay. I was just casually making sure I made eye contact with all the children. But what's really interesting is this child was monitoring me to see if I was actually going to be equal, in my observation and engagement with the students. He's like, I wonder if he'll look at everyone. And he was holding me to account and saying, actually, he did look at everyone. So I'm going to write that down. And I think what's really important about that is, if they're seeing us looking at everyone, then that's, almost hidden. They're seeing everything. They're seeing everything. How are we treating them? How are we engaging with them? Are we recognizing them in terms of their ability? Are we talking to them? When they walk in the door, morning, how are you, Tommy? Yep. Are we saying morning to everybody if we're saying morning to one person? It's really, really important, this sense of justice, especially with children with neurodiversity. This sense of justice is so important to them. And I've only got a few more slides to show you, but it comes out of the USA. And maybe, Amy, you're Canadian, so you probably have some of these. We don't have many of these in Australia. But these are the top 6 most frequently purchased cereals in the USA. They just incidentally are the most 6 worst you can possibly eat. They've got the highest rate of sugar inside them. And this research came out of the USA. And it's called Why is Captain Crunch Staring at My Child? That's what the research is called. Now, these cereals are on the top shelf in the supermarket in America, and they're out of reach of children. But if you look at the characters on the boxes, the character is looking down at exactly 9.6 degrees. Now, the cereal companies did some research to see what is the optimum angle we can put these eyes to catch the children's attention as they walk down the aisle of the supermarket. So they pull mum's or dad's jumper and say, Mum, 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 I want Captain Crunch. What's the optimal angle? And it just so happens to be 9.6 degrees. It's really frightening. Okay. And it works. It works. Children look up, they see them, and they say, Mum, 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 I want that. And then mum buys it, or dad. Now, what was really interesting about the research is, obviously, it's horrible when you hear it, right? And you're like, oh my God, is this really happening? But of course it's happening. What's interesting was when the children found out that they were being manipulated, they no longer wanted the cereal. When they found out, by the way, you do know that those eyes are being put there on purpose to catch your attention, so you buy it, and it's got the most sugar, they say, no, I don't want that anymore. They would immediately opt out. Children don't like being lied to, manipulated, or mistreated. They don't like it. Their level of trust goes, and that's it. They're gone. And so this comes out of, this co-regulation theory, which is the science of shared calm of our teachers. So our teachers need to make sure that if we want to be trusted, if we want our children to come into our classrooms and trust us, we need to make sure that we are preparing ourselves. And it comes out of Tronick, this Edward Tronick. You can look him up. It's called, co-regulation theory. Very interesting indeed. And basically, it talks about teachers being an extra cortex for children. And what it really comes down to, very simply, is this. Children trust us, so they pick up on our nervous system. It's almost like a Wi-Fi. We're the router, and they're picking up on that router, and they're clocking into us. If we are panicked, if we are stressed, if we are unregulated and unorganized, they will be exactly that. If we are calm and we are resolute and we are really, really, in terms of organized when they come into our space, we'll be able to regulate them, and they will just clock in. In fact, they will borrow our nervous system if theirs is deregulated. They will just latch into it. So if a child is deregulated, something's going wrong, they're stressed, they're panicked, they're scared, something's not right, and they will not speak because they don't know what it is that's happening to them. If we approach them, we're calm and we're soft and we're low and we're open, we'll find them tune into that very quickly indeed. I talked about school being a scary space. I just wanted to put this here for you, Lucy, so your teachers maybe in the presentation can take a screenshot. There's a lot that sits there when it comes to children being fearful of what might happen in school. Lots of things we don't think about. even the air conditioner. Will the classroom be too cold? I'm too scared to tell the teacher to turn it off, but I'm really scared of that being a thing. And I've come up with this, which I hope you really love. And it's 50 ways that you can prepare your school environment so that it is not a place of fear long before the children even leave the house to come to school. Many Montessori schools do many of these already, but many don't. And so I put this in here for you, Lucy, so that during the presentation, when your teachers come to watch this, they can take a photograph of this, take it to their school and say, okay, let's work our way through these and just make sure we don't have any of them sitting in our school. It's like bingo. The less of these you have in your school, the more successful your educational journey for your students will actually be. And it goes down to this. Children do not like inconsistency. A raspberry is very different every time you eat it, but a cracker is not. And so from an educator's point of view, you literally have to be a cracker. Decide what you are, and then go into school every day and be that. Do not be inconsistent. Inconsistency means children are fearful to come to you. I don't know what I'm going to get out of this scenario, this situation. Like a cracker, you know what you're getting. You're getting a piece of boring cardboard covered in salt that you're going to now eat. It may not be healthy, but you know what you're going to experience. The last thing is an offer that I want to put to everyone attending today. As you know, at Upschool, we work with schools all around the world. What we found with schools, and especially Montessori schools, is they're doing amazing stuff, but I can't find that stuff anywhere. I can't find it. Quite often in Montessori education, we're very humble, and that's beautiful. I love that. But such amazing things are happening in schools, and I just can't find the evidence of it. Where is the evidence of learning? It has happened, but it has drifted away into the ether. So with our schools around the world, what we want to do is give children a chance to have student voice. And this is from my book and something that all Montessori schools say, and it's, do you like my work? And in many schools we say, yes, I love it. And the children do the work for us. I do this work to impress my teacher. Well, that is completely the opposite of what we want. And the question we should be saying is, I don't know, what are you going to do with it? And they say, well, I'm going to teach kindergarten about, in the history of India. Okay, I love it. If there's a purpose, if there's a reason, then we now have some intrinsic motivation. And so what we want to do was, I'll go to this. We built something completely free of charge called Dear World. And I think it would really be great for Montessori schools to have a look at this. And what it is, basically, it's a platform that sits on your school website. It's free. You just click a button and download it. And it allows children in your school on a weekly basis to reflect, to post, to log the work that they have done. Everything's private until someone in admin makes it public, so nothing is just front of house. And basically, children get to say, we did this, and we want to inspire the world by what we've done, and we want to tell you about it and show you the values that it holds. For example, these children here, they were collecting tires from an old disused bus terminus and turning them into furniture. And you look at that and you're like, wow, okay, maybe we'll do something like that. So we've got thousands of schools already using this. And what they do is they just literally on a weekly basis say, this is what we've done. This is how it felt. This is what you might want to do. And what happens in schools is other schools see it. Parents come to the page and they have a look, and they're allowed to react to it. This has made me feel moved. The school as a total can then see, well, here's our school values and here's how we're meeting them. They can look at the numbers around that. They can also see, how is our work making the community feel? So we're making people feel inspired, moved. We're making people feel hopeful for the future. It's a great advocacy for the work we do in Montessori education, completely free. And there's a QR code if you're interested, or you can email me and I will just send you a link and you can start using it. But yeah, I'm very grateful to be able to do that for schools and work alongside them, because I get to see what's happening in them too. And I'll finish with two more slides and I'm going to go. I'm sorry, Lucy, I'm talking way too much, but never mind. Whether it's a child creating a picture for her grandma with the hope of bringing a smile to her face, or an entire school planting a forest to attract their first bird. By the way, both of those things have happened at Upschool in the last year. The essence of educational success lies in asking the question, how did our work contribute to making the world a little bit better? And if all of our schools could just think like that, how is this improving the world? Then we are on our way. Both books are out. If you want to buy them, they're available in every bookshop in the world. Go ahead and do that. It'd be great if you could. And I'll finish by reading this box from Raising Resilient Children, which says this: learning from the heart. They say good teachers teach from the heart, but children should learn from the heart too. Children are a powerful force, and their collective voice and energy is something we cannot ignore. They are the leaders and change makers of tomorrow, responsible for the climate, the forests, and the future of humanity. Education is more than filling their minds with knowledge. It helps them realize the incredible power they already have, a power we often underestimate. Our role isn't to control or suppress that power, but to guide it, helping them see how they can use it to impact the world around them positively. That same unstoppable drive, when nurtured and given purpose, can become a force for good. Children are capable of transforming the world from the ground up, and I truly believe it, and I've seen it many times. Thank you so much for listening to me for the last, I don't know how long I've been talking. Yes, not too long, just under 45 minutes, 50 minutes. Appreciate you being here, spending your time. And Lucy, thank you for having me. Appreciate you for inviting me. And I don't know if we even have time for questions now, but I apologize if I've gone too long.
It's okay. I think we can have some time for questions. I will first take the questions here on Zoom. Question from Annika. You mentioned raising happy children, which I agree is quite vague and simplistic as a goal. I'm curious, is there any research that tracks something deeper, like students' sense of living a meaningful life? And if so, how do graduates from different educational systems compare on that kind of measure? I would also be fascinated to know if anyone has studied self-actualization, reaching one's highest potential as Maslow described it, across different educational approaches.
Hmm. Well, just quickly talk about Maslow as that's come in. So, essentially, the research around safety states that, the old phrase is Maslow before Bloom. You can't get to Bloom unless you have Maslow. There's no question about that. There's no safety involved. If you don't have those foundations, you're not getting anywhere near Bloom. You're not going there because they're not going to be able to extend themselves to be able to do that. When it comes to the happiness, my intention was not to say that we are aiming for happiness. My intention was to say that parents will vote for educational pedagogies and schools and philosophies with their enrollments. And there are three things that they want, the three fundamentals that they want. This is what they want to see. And this is why they will opt out of schools too. Is my child safe? Is my child becoming smarter? And are they happy? The measure of that is, do they run to school in the morning? They can't wait to get there. And number two, do they want to leave at the end of the day? In many schools I've worked in, they don't. They don't want to leave. It's like, it's time to go home now. And they're like, oh, I just don't want to go from here. I just want to stay here. And I think that sits in it's a kind of all-encompassing answer, but it sits in the prospect that the child is able to follow their own path. And if we go back to that time, the allocation of time for a child under 12 years of age, and we look at work, we talked about work, 120 months of our life in school. If children are allowed to choose in our classrooms, choose where they sit, who they work with, and how they represent their research, what we actually are doing at that point is allowing them to become their future self. Because, there's a very famous philosopher called Alan Watts, whether you know him or not, but he brought philosophy from the East to the West. And one of his most poignant and famous quotes is that when you read this chapter of his book, he tells you to sit down in a chair and don't move until you've answered one question. And the one question is, what would you do with your life with 1,000 months if money was not a thing? If you didn't have to earn money, what would you do with this time that you've got? Sit there and don't move until you've answered that question. So you sit there and you're like, you know what I'd do? I'd just go hiking. I love hiking. I'd just be a hiker. That's what I'd do. I love hiking. And he says, when you've decided what that thing would be, it is now your obligation to yourself to include it in your life. And what happens at that point is you start doing that thing because you know what it is. After a short space of time, you become a master at that thing. And when you become a master at that thing, it starts to become all-encompassing in terms of how you spend your time. And then if money is a thing, money starts to come. It starts to become your job. And you never work a day in your life because you're actually doing the thing that you loved from the beginning. Quite often in our schools is we force our children down a rabbit hole. And our parents do this a lot. We say, you're going to be this thing and you're going to go to this tutoring club because I think it's a good idea. But they don't want that. And that intrinsic motivation for I now know I want to be this, is lost. And happiness in life comes from doing, spending your 1,000 months doing something you want to do, not what you don't want to do. And I talk about that in my book. If you've ever been to Goa, you will find these men sitting on the beach in India. They are 60 years old. They are everywhere. They've got an earring, baggy trousers. They're looking out to sea. They are lost and they are sad. And in my opinion, they have chosen a job they didn't want to do. They've done it till 60. They hate it every day. They found out, oh my goodness, I've wasted my entire life. I'm going to an ashram. I'm going to Goa. I'm going to find myself. We don't want our students to waste all of their life doing something that they don't want to do. We want them to choose it in our classrooms at 5 years of age and realize, oh my goodness, I'm going to be an artist. I just love painting all day, every day. And they become a master before they even leave school. So, and I've seen this with my own students. I was at the gym. I bumped into an old student of mine. He was 25. And I distinctly remember every single time I gave him free choice, he wrote a comic. He made a comic for everything: history, geography, science. He made a comic. And when I bumped into him in the gym, I said, "What are you doing with yourself these days?" And I'm not lying. He said, "I work at Marvel Studios in America. I'm a scriptwriter for Marvel." And I thought, there it is. I remember you making a comic every single time. And then he goes, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I did make a lot of comics." So that is it in actual fact. And I think we've got it the wrong way round in our educational systems around the world. We've got it upside down.
Thank you. Thank you. I have another question here. Um, is it too late for this preciosity paradox after 7 years, or is it reversible?
Very good question, and I don't know the answer to that, unfortunately. It's not. I don't know the answer. It Wozniak's research, and it's to do with the window of time between 0 to 7, because obviously a lot of people talk about that window in terms of learning languages. Montessori talked about it in the sensitive periods. Um, I have a strong suspicion that some of it is reversible, like getting gray hairs when you become stressed. If you become unstressed, some of them will turn brown again, I think. I hope. Maybe, fingers crossed, if anyone's got that research, I'd love to hear that too. I don't know the answer to that, unfortunately, but we can find out. Ultimately, we can find the answer to that. But I think the precocity paradox it's just so interesting, right? When you look at that, because I've met many of those children and they sit in that, I know those families really well. And they wheel out this champion mathematician and they wheel him back in the cupboard again. And then goes, oh my God, wow, he's a genius. And maybe for a short time he will be a genius. But if you don't have that breadth of knowledge and it's not a choice, if it's forced, you end up becoming mediocre, which is fine to become mediocre, but really you want the children to hit their potential, whatever that potential may be, and it's allow them to be free, and don't force them down that rabbit hole. No one wants that.
Okay. One last question. I take this one from YouTube. What is the biggest mistake or problem that you encounter in the classroom? And if you had to choose just one thing, which is the most important one in the classroom, which would that be? Thank you.
That's a really good question. And I've thought about this long and hard. I was very lucky that when I started to, and this is not about me, but when I started to do this research, I realized that somehow in the past, somewhere, I think my mum or my grandfather, some of these fundamentals which allow children to thrive, I just had them somehow just in me already. So, the shaking of the hand and the connecting with every child. And I don't know where that came into me. It wasn't Montessori training, although it was affirmed then when I did the Montessori training, but I just had it. I've always been very successful at teaching children somehow. And it comes down to this, comes down to letting them know that they are important to you. It's really, really important that, like, I really care about you. I've had some of the worst classes in the entire world. I've worked in London, I've worked in Sydney in this classroom where one child, he's objective. I said to him, "What do you want to be when you're older?" No word of a lie. He said, "I want to shoot policemen." I said, "Why?" He goes, "I hate cops." And I was like, he was 8 years old. Right? And I was just like, how am I going to teach these children about fraction with different denominators when he just wants to shoot police people? That was his objective. And somehow it had come into him via the news or something at home or something. He said that. And a lot of the kids in the class were like, yeah, we also want to do the same thing. I was like, oh my God, I've got my work cut out here. Right? I've got my work cut out. Now, guys, time to read Roald Dahl, James and a Giant Peach. They're not going to come to that lesson. And what I found over the years is when you tell them explicitly and show them, you know what? I really care about you. I really care about you. And you really matter to me. And I'm a human. I make mistakes too. And sometimes I'm tired. And, I'll let you know that. And we'll just talk about it as well. I'll let you know. I don't live in the cupboard. I'm actually human. I do a poo. I go in the shower. I go shopping. I do the things that you do as well. And I think the two fundamentals for me are be human, be a human. Like, let them know it's okay to be a human, to make mistakes, to be tired some days. And they will go, oh, so if it's okay for him, then it's okay for me. So I'm going to do that. And it doesn't work unless the children trust you. And they won't trust you unless you've let them know that they matter. So, in answer to the question, I love the question, we could talk about all day about it, is know about them and let them know that you're interested in their life and be genuinely interested. I'm interested. Like you said, Lucy, at the beginning of this, like you've done it as an adult. You've told me, Gavin, I know you do work in Nepal. Now, I haven't told you that work, right? But you know. So that tells me you've been looking at my work, although I didn't see you looking, and you're interested in it because you said it, Gavin, I like your work in Nepal. So I know that I matter to you and therefore I trust you. And then when you say, Gavin, will you do this talk at my conference? I say yes, because I trust you. I get hundreds of requests every single day and I say no to most because I haven't got time. And it's that, like that relationship between all humans, children, adults, it's really fundamental. Let them know they matter and then be a human being. And then it's so easy after that. The child who wanted to shoot police, by the way, in the end, he didn't want to shoot police anymore. He wanted to add fractions with different denominators. He just loved it. He loved fractions at the end. So yeah, it's really important. So, but I love it. Yeah. But thank you for your questions. I really appreciate it. It's been nice to talk to you as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Gavin, for being here, for saying yes to be one of the speakers at the conference. I really appreciate you being one of the speakers like every year. So thank you. And
No, my
thank you very
pleasure.
much for your work. And I'm really sorry we don't have as much time so you could share your work in Nepal. I really love that. So maybe I will just add some links to your videos to your profile because I think everyone would love it.
Thank you. And thank you so much. And just while I'm here, I don't want to focus on Amy too much, but Amy's here from Canada. And just so you know, I'm working at Montessori Australia. She's running Montessori Canada. And in October, I'll be heading over to Canada to do a tour of Canada with her, talking about this kind of thing. So, Amy, just want to let you know this presentation is for you so you can see what you're going to get, something like this. If there's anything you don't like, you tell me.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you everyone for being live here. Thank you again to Gavin, to everyone here on Zoom. I really appreciate your questions. I really appreciate seeing your faces. And I would also love to say big thanks to everyone watching us on YouTube. If you want to be with us tomorrow on Zoom, please, you can buy the VIP pass or join us in the Childhood Potential Club. And I will see you tomorrow a little earlier than today, 3 hours earlier. And we will have two talks tomorrow. So it's going to be even a little longer. And I can't wait to see you. Gavin, thank you again. And big thanks to everyone and good night to everyone. And for those of you who have morning or in the afternoon, Gavin, to morning, have a great day.
Okay, bye-bye. Take care, everybody.
Bye.